Hello there, Commonwealth from you. We've got several Nintendo Switch 2 games confirmed, so let's go over them after you leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell. Future new 2D top-down and 3D open-air Zelda games have been confirmed by series producer Eiji Aonuma, and reading between the lines we know that these are for the Nintendo Switch successor and hopefully in upscaled 4K. Since then, we have had none other than Smash Bros. Creator and boss Masahiro Sakurai himself announcing in his final personal YouTube channel upload that he has worked 2.5 years on a new game. Yes, he confirmed it, but also that it is not close to being finished. Naturally, this time frame points to this new future game being designated for the more powerful successor from Nintendo. Then what could Sakurai-san be cooking up for the Nintendo Switch 2? A lot of people are speculating that the title in question is the next Super Smash Bros. A game that might potentially be forced to cut down some of the roster from Ultimate. To be fair, I'm not 100% sure if he is developing the next Smash, but usually numbers don't lie. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on the Nintendo Switch has sold around 33 million copies, and just like with Mario Kart and Animal Crossing, it is likely that those developers are tasked by Nintendo to work on the new game, which also fits, as Sakurai delivered his proposal right after finishing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC. Nintendo simply needs new installments of these Switch top seller franchises to secure success for the Switch successor. At the same time, we also have to be honest. Despite confirming new titles and even development of these, as is the case with Sakurai, we've not seen specific announcements of games on the Nintendo Switch successor. It's something that we are able to imply based on development time and release cycle. In the meanwhile, My Time at Portia developer Pathia Games revealed in September that their next game, My Time at Evershine, will be released on future Nintendo platforms yet to be announced. And in late October, we had Playtonic taking it a step further, as the latest reveal and trailer has no release year and is not confirmed for Nintendo Switch, just Nintendo. Googly eyes and everything above the Nintendo logo and in the official tweet. Reminds me of Sonic coming to NX back in 2016. Naturally, we got Sonic Forces on the Switch, but the difference this time is that it is being cheered on by key Nintendo employees. Since Playtonic, founded by former Rareware developers, is naturally based in the UK. And a few hours after Playtonic made their tease, Neil Flynn, marketing manager at Nintendo UK, retweeted the Playtonic reveal. Not only that, he also replied under the X post with googly eyes. Either way, we're dealing with Yooka-Laylee Remastered or Yooka Replay coming to Nintendo. And you know what makes this funnier? The reveal of the spiritual Banjo successor remaster took place hours before the launch of Banjo-Tooie on Nintendo 64 Switch Online expansion pack. Though it isn't alone to be remastered, far from it, as we know of at least one other remaster that might be destined for the same on the Nintendo Switch 2. That is right, Breath of the Wild 4K, probably Nintendo's worst kept secret apart from the system itself. That is, since Gamescom 2023. The Triforce of Power leaked over 12 months ago. Then we gained the Triforce of Wisdom from Midori with the codename U-King-O in May. With the Pokemon Terra leak or the Triforce of Courage in October, we now know that this one isn't the codename of the Switch successor, but rather a game tied to said system. Moreover, U-King appears to have been the codename used for Breath of the Wild until E3 2016. In other words, Yooka-Laylee Remastered or Yooka Replay might not even be the first remaster confirmed for a release on the Nintendo Switch 2. Though, speaking of visually enhanced versions, apparently Nintendo has decided to fill up early 2025 with a lot of them, so we get the launch of the Switch successor. After all, there will be some months from reveal to release of the new system. In this early 2025 plan, we already know of Donkey Kong Country Returns in January, though if we are to believe Brazil, we're now getting multiple third-party remasters. These include the remasters of Ubisoft's Splinter Cell Blacklist, Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc, and the classics Driver 1 and 2. The same is also potentially the case for EA, as we have already seen with My Sims and Bandai Namco, all to keep us filled while we wait for the brand new Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Both of the above mentioned titles are still coming to the Nintendo Switch. In fact, following the big Pokemon leaks, there's no signs anymore that Legends ZA is coming to the Switch 2, and definitely not on the same day and date as on the Switch. meaning that the game is likely launching before the Switch 2 and might only be playable there for potential backwards compatibility, but more on that soon. At least the dream of Metroid Prime upscaled 4K beyond on the Switch successor lives on. With that said, we don't even require a reveal to know that the next 3D Mario game and Mario Kart are in development for the Nintendo Switch 2. The same goes for the massive 5-game lineup from Sega revealed at Game Awards 2023. New games in the Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Crazy Taxi, and even more franchises, all in development to power the next level. Then we have Square Enix, which earlier this year announced that they are done with exclusive deals. Why? Disappointing sales on PlayStation 5, especially in Japan, with Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. In fact, everything points to that these and other AAA games might be on their way to the Nintendo Switch success, the hybrid follow-up to the most popular system in Japan, where the JRPGs like mainline Final Fantasy and Visions of Mana will sell far better. And in fact, they already do that, but with Dragon Quest, including this year's Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. And we haven't even mentioned Capcom with Monster Hunter Wilds coming out next year, and the potential of 2024 Street Fighter VI coming to the Nintendo Switch successor. Same can be said about From Software and Elden Ring, Larian and Baldur's Gate 3, and many other Western game developers. For Ubisoft, the Switch successor, and in the case of Ubisoft, the Switch successor might be the last lifeline. At the same time, not only the upcoming games are hot, as the same is likely the case for the system itself. Literally. This is where better cooling comes into play, and recently we were introduced to the drawn-up mock-up of the new dock, far more chunky and indicating what a real upgrade of the system is. Specs to use DLSS, all to output high resolutions and frame rates on our TVs, which again requires the right amount of cooling, though also upgrades to the exterior, bigger display, buttons, analog sticks and magnetic Joy-Cons, with exclusive titles and backwards compatibility to take advantage of the existing Switch library of games, hopefully with some DLSS support as well. But when will the reveal with hopefully some of the above mentioned games throughout this video be? After all, we're nearing our last 2024 reveal chance, as Nintendo will soon gear into the holidays. One without any price cuts for the Nintendo Switch systems, apart from the holiday system plus game bundles. The deadline is November 5th, with Nintendo's quarterly fiscal meeting as detailed by Nintendo Forecast. But personally, I think the deadline is soon, since if the Switch successor isn't revealed by Halloween or Thursday, October 31st, then it is over for a 2024 review. Here is one. End of Halloween marks the start of the holiday season in most regions around the world, and already the week after is packed with obstacles preventing a review. Tuesday, November 5th has both Nintendo's final fiscal briefing of the year and the US presidential election. And 2 days later, Nintendo has the last big new release of the year, Mario & Luigi Brothership, on Thursday, November 7th. Moving to the next week, and we are in early Black Friday deals territory. From a financial standpoint, Nintendo has absolutely nothing to gain from revealing this system after November 5th. It will only harm sales of the Nintendo Switch family of systems that are to be placed under the Christmas tree, as consumers, and most of all families, will hold off. Though, do you know who will be the most furious with such a late reveal? Retailers, who will struggle to sell their remaining Nintendo Switch systems. The other groups are naturally Nintendo stock owners, who absolutely don't want this holiday season to be ruined by the reveal of a system that will not be in stores until the new fiscal year, that is to say, deep in 2025. For them, it makes far more sense to have a reveal in, say, February 2025. And the backwards compatibility on the new system argument makes zero sense to prove the opposite, as instead it will keep people who still haven't bought a Switch from buying a Switch this holiday season, as they know they will be able to play the current Switch games on the new system, while existing owners will wait to buy these recent games until they can play them with better visuals and frame rate on the Switch successor. Without a release of said system for these holidays, I see why Nintendo wants to avoid showing the system in 2024. But Conrad, Nintendo did the same thing in 2016. Yes, but back then we had the Wii U, a dead system where even Zelda Breath of the Wild was already announced for the NX. With the Switch, Nintendo is targeting 5 million sold systems in the next 5 months, surpassing the DS. and retailers and stock owners don't want it any other way this holiday. But what do you think about all of this? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell. And last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons for keeping our channel running. Special shoutouts go to raw producers Zach Johnson and JC Funk and heroes Holly Wolf, Cheryl and Garrett Hoy. You rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.